yesterday made a surprise appearance at Turning Point USA's America Fest in Arizona. Nicki Minaj used her time on stage to praise President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance, calling them role models for young men. She was interviewed by Erica Kirk, the widow of Charlie Kirk, about her newly found support for Trump, someone she'd condemned in the past, and about her actions denouncing violence against Christians in Nigeria. In other news, a Russian general has been killed after an explosive device detonated underneath his car in Moscow. AP correspondent Charles de Ledesma has more.
Lieutenant General Fanil Savarov, head of the Operational Training Directorate of the Russian Armed Forces General Staff, died from injuries caused by a car explosion. A spokesperson for Russia's investigative committee says investigators say Ukraine could be behind the attack, the third such killing of a senior military officer in a year. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov says that President Vladimir Putin had been immediately informed about Savarov's killing. The Defense Ministry adds the senior soldier had previously fought in Chechnya and taken part in Moscow's military campaign in Moscow. Moscow also has blamed Ukraine for several bombings and other attacks in Russia. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
The U.S. Coast Guard is pursuing another sanctioned oil tanker in the Caribbean, according to a U.S. official. The U.S. has seized 2 tankers in 2 weeks. More information at apnews.com. This is AP News. World shares were mixed and Japan's yen slipped after artificial intelligence stocks pushed higher on Wall Street. This holiday season could set a record for travel. AP correspondent Mike Hempen has more.
AAA estimates 122 million Americans will travel between this past Saturday and New Year's Day. That's nearly 3 million more than the record set a year ago. AAA Travel Vice President Stacy Barber says people have a desire to travel, whether it's returning to their hometowns or going to new destinations. AAA expects about 110 million people to travel by car, with another 8 million taking domestic flights. The number of people taking flights would also set a record, despite domestic round-trip flights costing an average of 7% more this year than last year. I'm Mike Hempen.
And I'm Marcel.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few spotty areas of drizzle at times possible late today. Otherwise, cloudy skies, a high in the low 40s. South winds at 5 to 15 miles per hour, gusting as high as 25. For tonight, a slight chance for drizzle, cloudy, a low near 37. By Tuesday, partial sunshine, high 46 degrees. Wednesday, a chance for rain, late cloudy, and a high around 42. That's your latest Chicago weather update. Currently, it's 36.
That's the sound of the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program, saving you money and energy. With rebates on Energy Star appliances, so you can come back to a home full of savings. Discover more ways to save at ComEd.com/home savings. ComEd, powering lives.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
And good morning, progressives. Welcome to the December 22nd, 2025 edition of Choose Views, 773-763-9278. Find my show on Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, and YouTube. Of course, you can email me at richard@WCPT820.com. Facebook Live, TuneIn Radio, of course, YouTube. And then follow me on X, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Blue Sky, Threads, Substack, and Spoutable. Absolutely. Get over there. Follow. You know how that thing works. Catch all of our shows by subscribing to our WCPT podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. There you can get Choose Views featured interviews. Joan Esposito, live, local, and progressive. Driving it home with Patty Vasquez. And by the way, Patty and I are going to be hanging out tomorrow morning in the 7 o'clock hour, so that's going to be fun. Of course, Driving Home with Patty Vasquez. And it's The Democracy Stupid with Edwin Eisendrath, Out Chicago, and our other shows and interviews. Make your way over to where, heartlandsignal.com, because of the good stuff that's there. The guys and gals that are there stay busy. They keep us plugged in and posted by posting great information that we can use on our shows, but also for you guys to be able to use when you are fighting the politics wars with your family. Today's show, well, who do we have? Stacy Davis Gates from the, I say, the Chicago Teachers Union / the Illinois Federation of Teachers. How about that? Because she's got her hands in both, but we'll get into the things that are happening with her and the work that she's doing, talking about the city budget, education, and also what's going on with education in the state of Illinois. And then in the 7 o'clock hour, our good friend Sarah Jones from the Daily PoliticusUSA will be with us. And in the 7:30 hour, Seth David Radwell will be joining us to hang out for a bit. Talk a little bit about woke and talk a little bit about some things that are happening in the Democratic Party and his observations from a business perspective as to what should be going on. So there you go. That's what's happening with today's show. It's December 22nd, which means that Christmas is right around the corner. We said we'd get here a couple days away. And we've got some surprises for you at the end of the week. So we know that'll unveil itself as we get closer to that. And as I said, tomorrow, Patty and I will be hanging out for an hour on the 7 o'clock hour. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Let's see, who do we have with us this week? We've got Dan Summons, who is a managing director of Blessings in a Backpack. Thought it'd be a good idea to have him on before we get to Christmas to talk about the work that they're doing and some of their plans for 2026. And then the choir, on Wednesday, the choir from the Leo High School will be joining us. And, of course, we'll wrap up the last show before we head out for Christmas with our good friend Kurt Mullett from Hoosier Blue 63. So there you go. Speaking of before Christmas, tomorrow, so I want to share this with you guys real quickly, and I'll talk about it again. The big question is, how will you navigate Christmas? So I want to hear from you guys over the next couple of days. How will you navigate Christmas? How will you navigate the folks that you're going to be spending time with these next, 3 to 5 days, and all that's going to come your way? Hopefully we've provided you with some tools and different things over the last few weeks and certainly through the course of this year. And if there are any clips that you remember that we may have played, send me an email and I'll try to get them to you. But whatever we can do to arm you up. But the question that I'm asking that we want to answer over the next couple of days, and to that end, we're going to be taking your calls. I'm going to be taking your calls tomorrow from 6:30 until 7, or really from 6 until 7. And then when Patty gets here, of course, we'll be talking to you then. But I specifically want to ask you guys what your year-end thoughts are, your end-of-year thoughts, holiday messages to folks locally or across the country, what that might be, and then some of the things that you're looking to do in 2026. And I know that'll be kind of an ongoing conversation. But I'd like to get your calls, definitely tomorrow morning's show, in that first hour, and the same thing on Wednesday. I'd like to get your calls about what you plan on doing through the rest of the year, how you're going to manage and navigate the folks that you hang out with and that you're going to be dealing with during the holidays, and what your messages are to the people across the country that listen to our shows and that are part of the programming that we have here. So that's really what I want to try to cover and give you guys some chances to talk about that for whatever amount you want to talk about during tomorrow's first hour and again on Wednesday's show. But right now, check this out, progressives.
And he said, I can't advertise with you anymore. And I said, why? He said, because you're a woman and because you're black. I said, so I can't be a woman and black, and that's what I am? He said, yeah. I said, do you know that's what they did in slavery? Before slavery, you know, we couldn't be that. I said, but let me suggest something to you. If I write that, if I put that on social media, do you know some of those people that you say that you can't advertise with, they come to your store weekly and buy your groceries. You want me to tell them that? He said, I'll call you back because I got to figure it out. I mean, but that with DEI eliminating or trying to eliminate, with the museum erasures trying to eliminate, with the restrictions at schools, how do we fight that? How do we, the people, fight that?
I think that people must understand that no matter what they think, no matter what they believe, no matter what they feel, no matter what the atrocities have been, they must know that Douglass was right when he said that all gains that have been made have come from honest struggle. If you're not engaged in the struggle, then you're not going to change anything. And so there are those who say voting won't do it. No, voting will not do it alone. But I can tell you, voting, knowing who to vote for, when to vote, all the time, how to vote. Voting is a principle that could be called the bedrock of democracy, because that's when you participate.
That was the latter voice was Danny Davis, and the person with him was Hermaine Hartman, who's a publisher of Indigo magazine and Indigo media. And why I wanted to play that clip is, you know, we are talking about what we do, what's important, how do we get and stay involved. And to that end, there's no hiding this, or this is not a surprise, and nothing that should be new to anybody that's paying remote attention, is that it's not only about what Danny Davis, Representative Congressman Davis was saying, and in my way of breaking it down is, voting is critically important. That's something that we fought for generations. All of our cultures have, all of our communities have, in one way or another. But what he was also saying is involvement, being a participant, knowing what's going on. And there wouldn't be such a concerted effort by the right, candidly. We know we're not going to talk about the left right now. We're going to talk about the right. There wouldn't be such a concerted effort by the right and their operatives, particularly their financial operatives, those that are that want to make this a technocracy or whatever it is, led by the tech bros and broettes. There wouldn't be such a push by them and by so many others that are moneyed up folk to remove people from not only the voting blocks with regard to voter suppression and voter eliminations from voting rolls, but there wouldn't be such a huge effort being placed on, and attention being placed on getting people distracted and having people look over here rather than focusing on the matters at hand in front of them and focusing on the prize. And there might be multiple prizes. That would not be the case if it didn't matter. There wouldn't be this misdirection, candidly, by the administration and then all the other operatives on the right. And you can look at it in small municipalities, or you can see it on the big screen, on the bigger scene. It's there. It exists. It's to consolidate. It's to take people away from activity. It's to remove people from participating or even having a desire to participate until it gets so bad that then they're at a position where they're begging. And that's what this administration, this regime is trying to do, is to not only take away the vote for people, but it's to take away the ability for people to even have a desire to try to take the will and take the will of people from even participating in the process. And I say to you, I challenge everybody, this is that time where you have to push back. We I say this, chins up and shoulders back. It's time to fight for a reason. It's because they're fighting to take away that which we should hold dear to our hearts. And that's the ability to participate in this process. And I don't want to see that for any of us. But right now, we are going to take a quick break. The number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
This is a WCPT Veteran Minute. In the heart of World War II, while the skies rumbled with the roar of combat, a groundbreaking squad of pilots emerged from the segregated South. The Tuskegee Airmen, an elite group of African-American pilots, defied the odds with their courage and skills. Trained at the Tuskegee Army Airfields in Alabama, they became the first black aviators in the U.S. military. Despite facing racism and skepticism, they soared through the skies with unmatched precision, escorting bombers and earning a distinguished reputation for their bravery. Their red-tailed P-51 Mustangs became a symbol of excellence and resilience, and in 2007, the Tuskegee Airmen were finally honored as they were awarded the Congressional Gold Medal. These aviators didn't just fight for victory in the air, they battled for equality on the ground, forever altering the landscape of the American military and inspiring generations to come. This has been a WCPT Veteran Minute.
Hey Google, play WCPT.
Streaming Chicago's progressive talk from TuneIn.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chu.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. Thanks for being with us on this December 22nd, 2025. So, as I was saying before we went to the break, we cannot allow them to steal our will. And that is part of the plan. That is why, and I've said this before, and we will say it again as a reminder so that people are not deceived. The goal is to get people to be disinterested in the process, to lose faith in not only the process and the people around them, but to lose faith in yourself. And that is not something that I'm going to allow to happen to the best of my ability. That's not going to be part of where we are. There obviously are lots of signs of good things that are happening. However, we want to make sure that we stay plugged in, and that's what Congressman Davis was trying to say about being involved, being a participant, staying in the fight, because it is worth fighting for. Listen, guys, with all the things that I could, as I've said before, as a guy that wears the costume that I wear, of all the things that I could say, you know what, I'm done with this country and I'm not giving up, then there's a lot of people who don't wear the costume that I wear. And you should be willing to fight just as hard, if not harder. And that's not meant to hurt anybody's feelings or ruffle any feathers at all. It's just to say, I'm staying in the fight because I believe in what we can accomplish and because of what we have accomplished with all of the imperfections that are out there. So there you go. All right, a couple of quick Choose Views news items on this Monday, December 22nd, 2025. All right, the biggest mistake managers make when delegating. Let's talk about a couple of employment items for a quick minute. Many managers mistakenly take a hands-off approach to delegation, often creating frustration and ineffective work. Wall Street Journal contributor Sabina Nawaz recommends supervisors visualize a, quote, delegation dial to help them determine the appropriate levels of guidance based on the tasks and that employees have based on their experiences. By determining different notches ranging from the micromanagement to full autonomy, leaders can help avoid expectation mismatches and better foster team growth. A couple of quick tips for some of you managers as we wrap up this year. Lack of space is complicating the corporate RTO efforts. I said this was going to happen. Some companies calling back employees back to the office don't have enough space, forcing colleagues to compete for desk space. Poor planning is part of the problem. Once again, poor planning is part of the problem. According to economics professor Nick Bloom, other times he sees it's not an incident or accident at all, rather than companies expect some attrition believe this or not, as a result of the return to office mandates. No place to sit, no place to work, no place for consistency. People are going to exit on their own. So, at JP Morgan earlier this year, workers who were required to return to office described the experience as, quote, pure chaos, miserable and horrible and stressful. Not having a place to sit that's consistent. There's a psychological part of that that's important for people. Workstations are important. Where you are, where you're supposed to be, we all know what that feels like. Google hires former employees in AI talent push of late. Google has adopted a new tactic in the battle for AI talent. What's that? Rehiring former employees. Roughly 20% of AI software engineers hired by Google in 2025 were boomerang employees, according to CNBC. It's a trend across industries, according to data from ADP Research. But Google has distinct advantages, a large reserve of ex-employees after mass layoffs in 2023, and the spending power for advanced AI projects. The company also ramped up hiring from competitors in 2025, intensifying recruiting efforts as it works to catch up in the generative AI space. White-collar workers confront vanishing job security. The formula used to be a simple one. Attend college, land a job, stay employed for more or less forever. But the rise in artificial intelligence and a tightening labor market has meant that white-collar workers aren't feeling insulated from disruption anymore. Americans with at least a bachelor's degree remain well paid, but they're less convinced they'll stay employed than those who have without the advanced schooling. It's called a shrinking reversal from the past, and not even half of highly educated workers believe they'll find work within 3 months of a layoff, down from 60% in 2022. Last but not least, live shopping is gaining traction again in the United States. Live shopping, which allows users to buy products in real time during a live stream, has been a staple in China's e-commerce industry for years. In the U.S., adoption of this has lagged, however, but that may be changing, according to Bloomberg. American businesses, big and small, are bolstering their live shopping strategies by hiring live stream hosts and production companies. TikTok reportedly believes that its live stream shopping feature will rake in $77 billion worldwide by 2027. So there you are, guys. A couple of Choose Views news items on this Monday, December 22nd, 2025. There you go. All right. Again, as I said before, tomorrow and Wednesday during the 6 to 7 o'clock hour, I want to take your calls to talk about kind of your Christmas plan. How are you going to navigate the folks that you're going to be hanging out with on Christmas Day and the Christmas weekend and all that good stuff? What is your plan for making sure that that things go well? And how are you going to deal with that person who is a member of your family or a friend or whomever that might not sit in the same space that you do when it comes to talking about some of the current issues that we're all dealing with? What's your plan? Have you thought about it already? Have you decided what you're going to do? We're celebrating Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa. Hey, how you been? We're celebrating all of that. So the question, it has to be asked and answered. We have to have, I believe, you have to have a plan of how you're going to navigate and deal with folks. Because we're all going to be, you might just be, hanging out with your parents or your children or your nieces and nephews. It might not be a big gathering. But whatever it is, how are you going to navigate and be prepared to deal with things that are going to be in front of us? We know right now that we're going to be talking about these things. I know that a lot of people are going to be trying to avoid talking about them, but I think that's part of the challenge. I won't say that's part of the problem. I probably have said that before, and if I have, then I probably have to clean that up a little bit. But that's part of the challenge is how do we get around the get around? The get around being, well, let's not confront anybody. Let's keep it peaceful. I think you keep it peaceful by being honest. I think you keep it peaceful by having the conversations. I really do. Because, you can end up talking about things that right now aren't going to move us forward. And I go back to what Congressman Davis was saying. We have to be engaged. And I believe we can walk and chew gum. I believe we can get together with family during the holiday season, and we can still have conversations that are meaningful about what's going on in our society. And I encourage you guys to do that and do it. See, because I think that a lot of times what happens is we're not prepared for the conversation. And in some cases, we may avoid it because we're not quite sure what we're going to say if someone says something that we think is crazy. That's part of it. I think the other part of it is we're worried that if we say what we're really thinking, feeling, and believing, that we're going to tick somebody off, and then that relationship's going to be, affected in a somewhat negative way. I think that that's part of it also, those two things. And there might be more, so I don't want to say that those are the only two things, but I think those are certainly two big ones. And because of the feeling of not being prepared to deal with the conversation, or a feeling of a sense of potential loss or disenfranchisement from people that you care about, that we may back away from those. And I understand that, but I also say in encouraging, we need to grab onto those right now. And this is one of those critical moments. This is one of the more important Christmas holiday seasons because of all that's happened when it comes to the tariffs and how that's impacted our economy. And it has. How it's impacted the cost of living. And it has, for sure. And those lists go on. But I do want to be able to be a little bit of a source for you guys these next couple of days. So by all means, call in tomorrow. I'm going to kind of give you guys that first hour, both tomorrow and on Wednesday, to call in and air out how you're going to navigate, what your plan is, and let me be able to, at least hear what you have to say. I know that some people have said to me, I'm not going to have those conversations. I'm going to avoid talking about things. I get that. And I'm not saying you're the one that brings things up. I'm saying that if you do have a situation or you are in an environment, what are you going to be prepared to do? And I don't think that avoiding the conversations is a plan any longer, because by avoiding it, we then see that, for lack of better words, they win the fight because they keep saying the same things without correction and being the same offensive, having the same, saying some of the same offensive things that you bristle at, but you don't say anything about. So I'm curious now, and again, no judgment. If you choose to take the high road, that's a strategy too. But I just want to hear what you guys are planning on doing, how you're planning on approaching it. So tomorrow in the 6 to 7 and again on Wednesday, 6 to 7 hour, I'd like to chat with you guys about that. We're going to take a quick break right now. The number, of course, is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT, AM 820 in Chicago, and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
Actual price will depend on product and subscription plan. Featured products are compounded drug products, which the FDA does not approve or verify for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. See website for details, restrictions, and important safety information.
Want a boost in and out of the bedroom? Hims has you covered. Introducing a new 2-in-1 approach to level up your game. Tadalafil for better bedroom performance and zinc for testosterone support. Put it all together and you've got what you need to turn things all the way up. Getting started is simple. Just go to hims.com/joy to start your free online visit. Through Hims, you can access ED treatments including pills, chews, and more. 100% online. No office visits, no pharmacy lines. Just fill out a simple intake form and a licensed medical provider will determine if treatment's right for you. If prescribed, it ships free and discreetly to your door. Find affordable treatment options at up to 95% less than brand names at hims.com/joy. That's hims.com/joy, HIMS.com/JOY.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few spotty areas of drizzle at times possible late today. Otherwise, cloudy skies, a high in the low 40s. South winds at 5 to 15 miles per hour, gusting as high as 25. For tonight, a slight chance for drizzle, cloudy, a low near 37. By Tuesday, partial sunshine, high 46 degrees. Wednesday, a chance for rain late, cloudy, and a high around 42. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 36.
A frog in boiling water and it'll jump right out. But put a frog in cool water and slowly heat it up, that frog will boil. As veterans, we tell ourselves the lie that we can handle anything. We let the water boil. You are not a frog. If you or a veteran you know needs support, don't wait. Reach out. Find resources at va.gov/reach. That's va.gov/reach. Brought to you by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and the Ad Council.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Welcome back to Choose Views with Richard Chew.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. So listen, I don't talk about sports too often, but I did something that I don't do very often, and that is I watched a football game, or at least a part of a football game. Watched the second half of the Bears-Packers game on Saturday night. I didn't even know they were playing, and a friend of mine said that they were going to be watching the game, so my wife and I ended up watching the second half. And even as a non-football watching guy, I said to my wife, I said, yeah, it's a close game right now going into halftime. And I said the Bears have done a marvelous job this year of pulling out football games in the second half. And lo and behold, they did it. So for those who are football fans, I will say that was quite an amazing football game, an amazing second half ending in overtime. So there you go. Mike Mercado he came in the studio this morning. Bears, baby, playoffs. So anybody in the country that watches football, I know if you got your team, you're probably excited if you had a good weekend. I know the Bears fans were lit up and on fire, so that was great to see. I mean, as much as I said I'm not a big football watcher or a Bears fan necessarily, it was nice to see the team do well and see the fans be so elated about that game. So there you go. All right, so there's a couple things that we didn't get a chance to talk. We're going to talk about them when Sarah's on for sure. But one of the things that I just very quickly touched on at the end of the week last week when our good friend Karen Byrne from True Blue Politics was with us, True Blue Politics podcast was with us, is some of the things that are happening with do we believe there's any truth to the idea that there are people who are fleeing the Trump administration, and if so, why? I'm curious what you guys have to say about that. But are the rats starting to flee the sinking Trump ship, as it were? You guys may have seen that the FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino late last week was heading out the door, and there are rumors that have been running kind of wild the past couple of weeks that there's some big shakeups that are coming. And I saw over the weekend that and again, Sarah and I will talk a little bit more about this, that Pam Bondi might be the next one to go. And there's a few others that are, it's speculation, so I don't want to get too far down that road. But I'm curious, and I wonder what you guys are thinking or curious about as it relates to if that's real. And it ties in, the reason that I'm kind of asking the question this morning is it does kind of tie into this conversation that are there actually GOP members that are leaving or they're not going to run again? And I don't know. I literally don't know, but I know that I've heard the speculation that there are ones who are not going to run for office again. So we'll see. But I'm curious as to where you guys are in that. So if you want to send me a text in terms of your thinking, let me know what you're thinking along with what you may be hearing in that space. All right, let's see. Let's read a couple of text messages in terms of what people are going to be doing. This comes from one of our listeners, Lois says that my Christmas Day is celebrated with a 50-50 split of Christian and Jewish upbringings. Only 2 are still active churchgoers. Those folks who I know who are in my family that are GOP members who voted for Trump, I don't celebrate with them since they don't live in the area. I wish them a happy holiday via cards. I love them, but we don't discuss politics. There you go. See, she has a strategy. And to me, that's what I think is super important, is having that. That's her plan. And it works. But I again, I said earlier, so I hope everybody caught this. No judgment on whatever it is you do or don't do. I just want to know what your plan is. I want to know how you navigate it, because it's a reality. You know, let's not pretend like this isn't something that crosses our mind or we would want to be, you know, a better situation. So kudos to you, Lois, for having kind of a way of navigating and dealing with this. Let's see what else. Okay, here's another one coming from Gabe. I plan on killing them with smiles. You can't speak to a maggot and expect a humane answer. All right, Gabe, I hear you. I'm going to read that one again. I plan on killing them with smiles. You can't speak to them to a maggot and expect a humane answer. Wow, already calling out the names, but you know that's it. Plan on killing them with smiles. That's the part that's part of Gabe's plan. And I know that you guys have them. I know that some of you, aren't necessarily ones to call in. So send a text. We'll read it over the air, as long as you guys are cool with that. But whatever we can do to offer some, way of processing and navigating and dealing with this, then, more power to all of us. So that's good stuff to hear. Let's see. Anybody else? Okay, we'll keep that one there for now. Right on, Gabe. Way to go. You can't expect a maggot to have a humane answer. Okay. All right. No judgment from me. Just high observation. All right. Let's see. Let's put that there. Okay. Got it. Now a couple other things. I know this. I had my news items here, and I put them to the side to read a couple text messages. In case you didn't catch, this is one that you guys want to certainly tap into. If you didn't catch Saturday Night Live, SNL, it's worth a watch. The opening was pretty doggone good. It threw shade as they do so well at the release of the redacted, the manipulated Epstein files. And I'm not laughing about the Epstein files and the harm that came from these awful people and the awful things that they did. But this is the part that just makes me kind of chuckle. How absolutely foolish and stupid are these folks in this administration to think that the most rational of people, and I know you guys are going to probably jump on me on this one, but the most rational of people would not realize that there's redactions that went on in the release and of the written items or the printed items. And then when it comes to the photographs, I mean, even the most butt-backward person recognizes when it's just flat out obvious that something's been, doctored or altered or sort of shielded a little bit. And so what's not getting into the potential criminality of this, which is one of the reasons that Pam Bondi is now being looked at askew, but just a pure lack of sense that people would go, listen, I know that photograph is one that's been either altered or what you tried to cover is so blatantly obvious. So, the administration, and I say the administration because of the way in which, the White House has kind of decided to marry up with the Justice Department. I mean, just how absolutely stupid. And some of you have gotten after me for using the word stupid, but just how absolutely, crazy is this? And I can come up with a lot of different words. To think that the bulk of the American people, voters, viewers, listeners, participants, we're going to sit back and say, oh yeah, that picture of so and so is real, or those documents. Oh yeah, I get why those documents have been changed. No, not at all. But there you go. That's the White House and the rest of the administration and how they look at the average American person. So it's SNL did a good job of talking about the redactions that took place, and of course the renaming of the Kennedy Center. I'm always going to call it it's like me in the Sears Tower here in Chicago. For those of you who know it, for years it's been known as the Willis Tower, but I'm still calling it the Sears Tower, and that's a different scenario. And some may say, why are you comparing the two? Well, I'm just saying it in terms of what I'm still calling it. I'm still calling it the Sears Tower. And the Kennedy Center, this Trump Kennedy Center, I'm still calling it the Kennedy Center. I'm not changing it to the Trump Kennedy Center at all. So, but I did see, oh gosh, I forgot where I saw this, Devin. Who was it? I believe it was a representative, and I can't think of what state she's from. I'll have to look it up again. But the question was asked of her, what's the first thing you will do when the Democrats are back in power? And she said back in Washington, and she said, I'm going to go find a pitch axe and tear down all of those letters of the newly named Trump Kennedy Center. And I thought, all right, that's a pretty bold thing to do, but just be careful, because I'm sure they're going to have some people watching to see, what harm you might be causing to government property. So be careful. They might refer to you as Antifa. You know what I mean? Devin, I guess we should take a little bit of a break, a short one, if you will. The number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
This is WCPT telling you how you can shop blue. Thomas Edison invented the first light bulb, but however, did you guys know that Lewis Howard Latimer, a black man, improved upon it? That's right. Latimer's light bulb was made to last longer than Edison's. Latimer later sold that light bulb to the U.S. Electric Company in 1881, making light bulbs more accessible and affordable to the community. Here are some light bulb companies that support the Democratic Party. Philips Light Bulbs. Philips supports the Democratic Party very highly. In 2024, Philips donated over $400,000 to Democratic candidates in 2024. GE, General Electric. GE roughly is about 50-50 split with candidates they donate to. In 2024, 54% of GE's donations went to the Democratic Party, including $159,000 to Vice President Kamala Harris's presidential campaign. Hey, you guys want to hear a joke? How many Republicans does it take to change a light bulb? None! Donald Trump just says it's fixed and they all sit in the dark and applaud. This has been WCPT telling you how you can shop blue.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
This is Choose Views with Richard Chu.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Hey Devin, can we hit him with that Jamie Raskin clip? We have that ready?
What of this do you think falls into the category of protecting victims, and what falls into the category of cover-up? Because obviously there is a very strong interest in making sure the victims are protected.
Yeah, I'd say probably 0 and 100. They've not shown any deference or respect for the victims at all, for the survivors of this nightmare. And it's all about covering up things that, for whatever reason, Donald Trump doesn't want to go public, either about himself, other members of his family, friends, Jeffrey Epstein, or just the social, business, cultural network that he was involved in for at least a decade, if not longer.
So do you think this actions that the Department of Justice are taking on this are specifically designed to protect Donald Trump?
Well, what else? I mean, that's their whole business model. In fact, they're trying to reorganize American constitutional jurisprudence and the rule of law around the idea that the entire executive branch serves one guy. That's the unitary executive theory. that this is all about serving whatever Donald Trump wants. So, yeah, I can't imagine what other interests they have in mind.
So that the question that came in that piece really is whatever the release was, however people look at the release, who is it actually serving? And that was Jamie Raskin was on CNN. And I like what his answer is. I'd say probably 0 to 100. They've not shown any deference or respect for the victims of all the survivors, for all of the survivors of this nightmare. It still circles back to that. As much as we, and even I said it myself. We can talk about the redactions and the hiding of the photographs or the changing of the photographs or whatever you want to call it. Ultimately, and we can't get away from this. This is about some people who decided that they were going to take advantage of, in extraordinarily harmful ways, of people, girls, children. And in the conversation about all of the ways in which the files have been released and the slow walk, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and the blocking, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and the delays, ultimately it still stays with it has to stay with the fact that these are survivors of horrific, horrible acts by people that seem to have no care at all for them. And I won't refer to them as victims as best I can, but survivors of this horrible period of time. I saw some posts of the various survivors and how they've become united, I guess is probably the best way I can put it, in their plight to make sure that this stays in the conversation. Not the release of the files and all the political conversation that goes around with that, and I've contributed to it in some ways. I know that, but the fact that they have come together in an effort of solidarity to make sure that they could sustain themselves as much as they possibly can during this craziness. So they're not victims; they are survivors. But I do agree with Jamie Raskin. There is no concern from this administration about the survivors here. It's more a concern about protecting themselves. And Jamie Raskin made it clear, when the Democrats are back in power and they have the majority, they're going to drag these folks in and make sure that they've got to stand and deliver. And I don't mean the survivors, but I mean the people who perpetrated and that have been accused and have, been given a pass in many ways. Pam Bondi is one of those people that's going to be, that's going to catch the ire, not just from Jamie Raskin, but also from Ro Khanna. Many of them are saying that once the Democrats are back in leadership, back in power, and again, we're talking about a year from now because of the midterms, unless there's some other things that happen with Republicans leaving their seat beforehand, that many of the members of the Trump administration over this particular situation with Epstein files could be facing impeachment, not just Trump as president, but many other members of the administration. So we will see where that goes. Some other top items that definitely want to make sure to chat about real quickly. And this staying in the same vein about the Epstein files, Representative Garcia out of California says the Epstein documents are just 10% of what the DOJ actually has. And so going back to what Representative Raskin said, this is the excuse that the DOJ is giving and that the White House is giving, is that they don't want to release other information because they want to protect the folks who were, as the Republicans are calling them, victims. But the survivors want this information to be released because they want the truth to come out. So Representatives Khanna, Garcia, and Raskin are all saying the same thing. They don't care about those folks. They don't care about the survivors. They only care about protecting those who they know. And then we can name the biggest one of being Trump. They want to protect them from what's coming. And that's why they're slow walking this. Virginia Giuffre's brother, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, says that the DOJ is clearly not releasing more information that they know, that they're aware of, and Pam Bondi is at the tip of the spear with that. But he says it's not shocking. They're looking to protect themselves, obviously. You guys probably saw J.D. Vance's, maybe you saw, I shouldn't say probably, possibly saw J.D. Vance's conversation, or not conversation, I should say, but his presentation, his speech, talking about this being a Christian in a white nation. And people, the reason that I found that to be, I don't know, it wasn't even offensive to me. I'll tell you why it wasn't offensive, because what he says, I don't put much stock into in terms of the content. What I found interesting about it, what I think is interesting about it, is how, many times people will say to someone that's African American that, quote unquote, racism is over, and why are you still bringing up race, and why are you still, talking about race, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's this kind of stuff. The Vice President of the United States, and then so we can call it racism, we can call it cultural bias, we can call it whatever you want, but the Vice President of the United States gets into a conversation that's nothing other than him showing his bigotry. Didn't call him a bigot, showing his bigotry. And that encompasses a lot. That encompasses racial discrimination, that encompasses gender discrimination, religious discrimination. And so how can we not talk about, quote unquote, race when the Vice President of the United States gets up and speaks about this being a, quote, Christian and a white nation. And essentially, if you don't love America, if you don't sort of acquiesce to this, then you don't love America. Well, there's people who are that don't wear the costume that J.D. Vance wears as a white guy with the beard in America, that were here before he was even born, that look like me. So I dare say that he has really any position, even as vice president, to tell me and millions of other people in this country what if they are a real American or not. He hasn't been around long enough. He doesn't even know what that means. He hasn't lived long enough to know what that means. So, but again, people ask the question: why do you talk? Why is everything got to be about race? Because the vice president's made it about race. He just did. He did. He made it about race and about bigotry and all the rest. So, okay. Well, we're gonna pivot a little bit. All I can tell you guys is we've got one of the great things about this show and about our broadcast is that we have the opportunity to talk to some of the people that are making change in not just the city of Chicago, but our state and our federal policy. Stacy Davis Gates has been one of those leading voices, and as you guys know, the last time we had her on the show, we talked about kind of her new post in terms of the executive vice president of the Illinois Federation of Teachers. But she's also been a stalwart player in the Chicago Teachers Union. And good morning to you, Ms. Gates. Welcome to Choose Views.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Good to hear your voice. I'm glad you're well, and I hope that you're doing well.
Well, we are winding down the year, feeling pretty good about some things, and looking forward to getting into some new fights for the people.
So let's talk about those two things in the short amount of time that we have. Let's talk a little bit about the successes that you've had since we talked a few weeks back. One in this new post, but also with the CTU achievements and and that success there. And then let's springboard that into 2026 and what some of your expectations are and what some of your target goals are.
Well, listen, as president of the Illinois Federation of Teachers, what's being affirmed is that we're only as strong as our local unions are strong. And so a part of the work is going to be twofold. Well, it'll be manifold, but the two things that I think we're going to focus on is building local leadership. People need to feel empowered. They need to have agency. They need to feel heard in the places in which they work and they live. And far too many places regulate our educators to just the narrowness of their classroom when there's so much power. I'm thinking about our members out in Aurora who had to face down ICE multiple times to both protect their students and to help the families that attend their school communities. They found their voice, they found their power, they found their agency. And so continuing to cultivate that, I think, is important, and in partnership, by the way, with the elected officials there. They have an opportunity with the mayor who leans more progressive to do that. So that's the work. And then along the way, I think what we're going to do is find out a lot of the programming, the initiatives, the things that make life better for people in these spaces. We'll have to rely on Springfield to come alive and to actually tax the rich.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's probably the big elephant in the room, if you will, as it relates to monies for the state at large, but also for, as you said, some of the local support and local strength. And the big conversation, I mean, the city budget is the city's budget is going to be the thing that most people are going to continue to talk about. I think probably more than anything else. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's certainly the thing that is got everybody's attention right now. Not because it is a thing, but because of the way in which we're trying to get to a finish line, get to a solution. And I believe your perspective, or we'll talk about your perspective about the budget, but also some of what you think is going to be some of the best solution items to get to a budget that's right and meaningful for the majority of the people in the city of Chicago, and then as a result, the counties surrounding and the state at large.
I think that's a perfect question, Richard. I think what you saw in the city budget fight is the fight that Democrats are having internally, to be honest with you. They don't know who they are, and they don't know what they're doing, and they don't know who they serve. There are more than 50% of the aldermen who are to the right of Republican Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney said tax the rich, and you have alder people here in the city of Chicago who said, well, wait a minute, let's talk about this. I don't know if we want to tax ultra-wealthy corporations. So now you have a better identification of what has been ailing the city of Chicago's finances for years. Check and see how many or how long those people have been there, and then also check their lineage as politicians along the way. It's very easy to stunt on Donald Trump, right, and create contrast there. Quite another thing when someone like the former Senator Mitt Romney, the former presidential Republican nominee for president, says tax the rich. Yeah. And now you really and truly have to have some introspection as a party in the state of Illinois, in the county of Cook, and in the city of Chicago as to who we've elected to have our backs. We have tax bills that put more burden on the south side and the west side of the city. We have schools that are screaming for more investment. You have public employees who have been working diligently to make the state, county, city work, and they are begging for investment as well. We have to have a pause, reflection, and do-over here. And if we can't do it in Chicago, I shudder to think about what we will be able to do federally.
Yeah. Stacy, what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, stay with us. When we come back, we're going to have you on for a few minutes. Our guest that we have at 7 o'clock, when we have on Sarah Sarah Jones, will hang with us for a bit as well, because I want to talk a little bit about what you just said when we come back from this break. The number is 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago, WARR 1520 AM, and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
Check Up on Health with Chris Whitting.
About 38 million of us suffer with foot pain. Dr. Ronald Jensen of the American Podiatric Medicine Association says it's not supposed to be that way, especially that nagging heel pain.
Plantar fasciitis is a ligament that becomes inflamed in the arch that runs from underneath the heel out to the ball of the foot. And each time you step, there's a large amount of stress that's placed on that ligament. It's rare that you get a plantar fasciitis that's caused by a singular injury. It's more of a repetitive type injury, so it would be related to your new exercise program, to your running, or even just daily household activities. It's important to realize that as that occurs, that you need to reduce your activity a little bit, give it a chance to rest, and if that pain doesn't significantly improve in 1 to 2 weeks, then it's time to seek the help of your local podiatrist.
The treatment is fairly simple. Rest, oral medication, perhaps taping the foot, or shoe inserts. With Checkup on Health, I'm Chris Whitting.
Are you looking to hire? ZipRecruiter finds the best candidate for your job fast. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
AP News, I'm Marcela Sanchez. Vice President J.D. Vance says the conservative movement should be open to everyone as long as they love America. He spoke to attendees at Turning Point USA's annual convention yesterday in Arizona.
We don't care if you're white or black, rich or poor, young or old, rural or urban, controversial or a little bit boring, or somewhere in between.
The vice president declined to condemn a streak of anti-Semitism that's divided the Republican Party after a long weekend of debates about whether the movement should exclude figures such as podcaster Nick Fuentes. Vance came down firmly against purity tests.
I didn't bring a list of conservatives to denounce or to deplatform.
Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche defended the Justice Department's decision to release just a fraction of the Jeffrey Epstein files by Friday's congressionally mandated deadline as necessary to protect survivors of sexual abuse. On NBC's Meet the Press, Blanche said he isn't taking seriously threats from Democratic Representative Ro Khanna and Republican Representative Thomas Massie that both could draft articles of impeachment against Attorney General Pam Bondi for what they see as the department's failure to comply with the Epstein Files Transparency Act.
Not even a little bit. Bring it on. We are doing everything we're supposed to be doing to comply with this statute. And Congressman Massey and these other congressmen that are coming out speaking negatively about Director Patel and the Attorney General have no idea what they're talking about.
Audio courtesy NBC's Meet the Press. Blanche also defended the department's decision to remove several files related to the case from its public webpage, including a photograph showing President Trump. More information at apnews.com. This is AP News. The Trump administration is reshaping the U.S.'s diplomatic presence abroad. AP correspondent Mike Hempen explains.
The administration is recalling nearly 30 career diplomats from senior embassy posts to replace them with personnel deemed fully supportive of President Trump's America First priorities. Two State Department officials who spoke anonymously say the chiefs of mission in at least 29 countries were informed last week that their tenures would end in January. All had been appointed during the Biden administration. The officials say the diplomats are not losing their foreign service jobs, but will return to Washington for other assignments should they wish to take them. Africa is the continent most affected, with ambassadors from 13 countries being removed. Second is Asia, with changes coming to 6 countries. I'm Mike Hempen.
And I'm Marcela Sanchez, AP News.
This is 820 AM, WCPT Willow Springs, and streaming worldwide at WCPT820.com. We are Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter. Now, your WCPT 820 weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few spotty areas of drizzle at times possible late today. Otherwise, cloudy skies, a high in the low 40s. South winds at 5 to 15 miles per hour, gusting as high as 25. For tonight, a slight chance for drizzle, cloudy, a low near 37. By Tuesday, partial sunshine, high 46 degrees. Wednesday, a chance for rain late, cloudy, and a high around 42. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 36.
You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
Welcome to Choose Views with Richard Chew. Get ready to dive into a world of insightful conversations and thought-provoking discussions.
As progressives, our job is to have an all-inclusive, full-on assault with all of our players.
A show that focuses on moving our political, social, economic, gender, and cultural conversation forward.
And all of our players means all of our players.
It's Choose Views. And now, here's your host, Richard Chew.
Hey, guys, welcome back to the show. We'll get right to it. We've got with us the Illinois Federation of Teachers Executive Vice President Stacy Davis Gates. So, Stacy, I'm going to make a statement. I'm going to ask two quick questions, kind of quick rapid fire. I want to get your thoughts on, and then we will we'll figure out how we're going to get you back on to the new year because I know you've got some goals. One doesn't need someone to approve a good idea, but when, to your point, a person like Mitt Romney, a very wealthy dude, says that rich people like me should pay more taxes to fix debt. Warren Buffett said it. What's the guy's name that owned the Dallas Mavericks? Mark Cuban has said it. There's a number of others who have said it. And Mitt Romney is not he is not the representation of a leftist, tax the rich person. But he said, yeah, that needs to happen. And he's broken with the party in some ways before. But here we are, and he's saying, yeah, it's got to happen. It needs to happen, and it's way past. He's actually saying it's also way past due. So your thoughts there again as it relates to the corporate head tax. I want to tie these two together because the numbers don't – people have said that the corporate head tax is going to kill jobs. The data doesn't back that up. So let's talk about that part in relationship to what Mitt Romney said.
Well, Mitt Romney knows what Mayor Johnson knows. He knows that you can tax rich corporations and that they can provide investment in your space and they don't leave. And in fact, they bring others. Look at Massachusetts. Look, what we have here in Chicago is a war within the party of neoliberalism. Again, neoliberalism is a concept that was fomented at the University of Chicago. So this is quintessentially a Chicago issue where you have moderate or conservative Democrats is what I think the newspaper was calling them. But these are people who believe that poor people, working people in this city deserve to uphold this city in ways that are even different from the First Daily. The First Daily said that we can do people who live here and the wealthy corporations, right? So you do property taxes and you do a corporate head tax. Same difference in a lot of ways. That's what Democrats used to say. We've gone so far down the Rahm Emanuel Democratic space until we can't discern if Democrats are Republicans or not, especially when it comes to taxing the rich. And that's not just a problem here in Chicago. That's a problem statewide. We have a governor who's a billionaire who was also coincidentally interviewed in the past week and said that we do have to tax the rich while also saying no to a corporate head tax. At some point, we're going to have to put these people on a scoreboard and actually understand how they feel. If they're with us, if they're against us, if they're willing to help us, if they're not willing to help us. Affordability for everyone right now is a real challenge. We're staring down Christmas prices, but also in 2026 and what that looks like. I've already talked to you about Cook County property tax rates, and those property taxes, and especially how late they've been given and the difficulty in collecting them, is costing our school system tens of thousands of dollars a day. What does that mean? It means an extra burden on all of us. And meanwhile, we have Democrats protecting rich folks and wealthy corporations. They're going to have to make a choice, Richard. Are they going to serve the people who live on off of Cicero and North, or are they going to serve the people in a skyscraper on Wacker? I mean, the choice is really stark in this moment, and I think that they're on borrowed time, to be perfectly honest with you, and that's what I think you saw the back and forth of, is are, politicians cleaving to what it used to be versus what it is currently. And I really hope that they, push fast forward on those used to be's, because we can't afford to continue to dry our feet.
Yeah, and the used to be's it's like running around. I've used this phrase before, Stacy. It's like running around with the parachute on. The used to be's, I hope that's a good visual. But used to be's means that or status quo or make America great again and all that. Actually, we're running around with parachutes on our back end. And it doesn't allow people to see what the future can really look like, because none of what and candidly, the GOP and a lot of moderate Democrats, this is why I believe there's so much frustration coming across the country from people who are tired of the moderate or the right-ish Democratic way of thinking, because it is running down the road with the parachute on your back end. It's not moving forward because it's allowing people to hold on to what it used to be. And when I looked at the numbers, in our last little bit here, when I looked at the numbers of what the head tax would represent for businesses, it's a certain segment of businesses. It's not every single business in the state of Illinois or in Chicago or Cook County. It's a certain percentage of businesses, and they have the wherewithal, the means to absorb that tax. I said it the other day, is an easy way to pay for it is cut some of the over compensation, if you will, of some of the top executives in corporations throughout the country, not just in Illinois or Chicago. That's one way to offset that $33 per employee per month number. But they're holding on to the past.
Listen, just think about what the choice became at the end of the debate. Selling off debt that working people have in the city, from red light cameras to parking tickets, in lieu of taxing wealthy corporations. That's your contrast in this moment. And we have elected representatives on the west side, on the south side, especially those who are saying, that grandmothers who are raising their grandchildren, grandmothers who are on fixed incomes, grandmothers who may have a red light ticket or a parking ticket or any other city debt, that their dollars are worth more to this city than the dollars of those who come here because they can move into a tall skyscraper. It's a bad choice, but it's a bad choice that they've been making for years. So they have no idea why someone is pushing them to make a different choice.
Exactly.
And then when you get Right. And then when you get the money all into it, you saw the commercials, on television, trying to redirect people's common sense. Like, look, someone's going to pay. What the people in Chicago have said overwhelmingly, 90% of black and brown Chicago, a super majority of Chicagoans, what they've said is that they're paying enough, that they need a break, and they need their elected representatives to hear that. The elected representatives in City Hall chose to listen to the wealthy corporations and their donors, and here we are.
Stacy, this is a conversation that has to go on. We got to talk about this some more, but I got to keep my word with my next guest. So you know how I am about that. I respect that you guys take time to be on the show, and it's a give and take. So here's what I'm going to leave you with. You've got to have a good holiday season, a safe holiday season, and getting into the new year. We'll have you back on in January. But what's your message that you want to leave folks in Chicago, the state, and frankly, the rest of the country, for our listeners that are on the West Coast and the East Coast and the rest?
That together we can withstand the tyranny of Trump. that together we can redefine Democratic Party policies and politics that reflect the needs of the actual people who are united under that tent and not the people who are elected to listen to the oligarchy, that we have a pathway forward. And I look at the 2025 CTU contract as a way. That contract protects young people. It prioritizes smaller class sizes, our queer, our transgender students. It can do the things that we needed to do when we do it together and voices are prioritized and heard.
Absolutely. Stacy Davis Gates, thanks for hanging with us this morning. We will talk to you in the new year. Have a good rest of the holiday season, okay?
Hey, Happy New Year and Happy Christmas. Take care.
All right, bye-bye. Let's take a quick, tiny break, and then we'll come back. We'll have our good friend Sarah Jones from the daily Politicus USA hanging with us, 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
Straight Talk knows the best holiday gift is simply saying yes.
Yes, you can stay up late. Sure, more cookies. Of course we can watch that movie again.
That's why we give you real unlimited data, so you can say yes to all of your family's streaming, scrolling, and sharing. And now at Straight Talk, get another gift worth giving, a free 5G phone with select plans. Because yes is the best gift to give.
Yes!
And receive. Available at straighttalk.com and Walmart. For network management practices, visit straighttalk.com.
When it comes to the vitamins and supplements you take, quality counts. If you have questions or concerns about the vitamins you plan on taking, we're happy to help. Mark Drugs, better health and care for you and your pets. The most common signs you need a probiotic are if you have taken an antibiotic and need to balance out the gut bacteria, you find yourself getting constantly sick, or you feel bloated, unwell, or have skin issues. We carry high-quality probiotics at our pharmacies such as Florastor, Floragen, and what I refer to as the silver bullet, Orthobiotic, which combines multiple strains of beneficial bacteria and friendly yeast to stimulate optimal gut flora. Get to know your pharmacist. Caring for you, your family, and your overall well-being is what our pharmacists at Mark Drugs stand for. You have a choice when it comes to your health care, and a great choice is Mark Drugs in Roselle and Deerfield, where you get better health and care for you and your pets. Check out markdrugs.com for the pet of the month.
Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
This is Choose Views with Richard Chu.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show, and thanks for hanging with us. We're kind of, moving the chess pieces around here so we get things done. Thanks to Stacy Davis Gates for hanging with us for a little bit this morning. And because of how gracious and wonderful our guests are, Sarah said, I'll press pause for a minute. But with us this morning is our good friend Sarah Jones from the daily Politicus USA. Sarah, good morning, and thanks for being with us, but also thanks for hanging a little bit loose so we could get Stacy in for a little bit longer this morning.
Good morning. Oh, it was my pleasure.
Yeah, she's great. I mean, I'm not familiar with how familiar you are with Chicago and Illinois politics, but we've got some big names here that have made obviously national news with our governor and J.B. Pritzker, and of course Mayor Brandon Johnson here in Chicago, and other officials here that have really been fighting the good fight, and she's one of them. CTU president, Chicago Teachers Union president, and Illinois Federation of Teachers executive vice president. So she's one of those voices, kind of like you, that says we've got to do whatever we got to do to win this fight. And in the cases of financing and economics, she's a stalwart when it comes to we do have to tax the rich unapologetically. And why are we waiting so long? So that's who she was, who she is. And thank you for being patient and letting us kind of squeeze in a little bit more time since we were running a little bit behind.
Oh, absolutely. No worries.
So to that end, I got to ask you this question as it relates to what she said, and I didn't even have this in my notes until early this morning, but, Mitt Romney comes out and says, yeah, we got to tax the rich. And I don't know if you saw that or not, but even now he's probably known it for a long time. He's just kind of, stood in the void so that it wasn't something that he had to sign on to. But yeah, he's even saying now that the rich should be taxed to fix the problems that we have when it comes to debt in this country. How do you? What are your thoughts about that, Sarah?
Well, it's interesting that he waited until he could no longer impact policy and law to say that.
Yep.
When that's been obvious for decades as the tax laws have been changed and whittled away over and over again to put the burden on the middle and lower classes to pay all of the taxes that the rich and that companies don't pay, big business. And he's always been somebody who represented big business. So I'm glad that he's saying this now, but I also note just how long it takes people to come out and say, I think we should be asking who else also knows that that's the only way to fix the problems that we face right now in this country. And they won't speak up because they can make policy. And instead they're choosing to bend the knee to the wealthy and those people who, may be contributing to their campaigns and may be lobbying them in the dark, and we don't know about it. So a lot of questions always come up for me when people who have stood for the opposite come forward now.
Yeah, I know. It kind of, when you hear that, what Stacy was talking about, when you hear that, you do ask the question, so where you been? And you knew, there's a part that you go, well, yeah, you're right, but we were telling you that. You didn't just come out with this. We've been telling you this for X number of years. And that's why, even though I highlight that Mitt Romney says this, I highlight it to point out the fact that people have known, in his role, have known this for forever. But their goal was never to really fight for the American people, quote unquote, John Boehner. It was to fight for their donors and their consolidation of power and resources. It was never about making sure that everybody else benefited. And so that's where we are. And here in Chicago, we're seeing that be exposed because even some Democrats that are part of the city council are faced with the reality that your donors mean more to you than the citizens of the city of Chicago and the county and the state at large. And it's a national problem. It's not just happening here in Chicago.
Well, I think that it really does. This is the story, and it's told. There's corruption here in the little township where I live. There's corruption in every government, all around, and that's why we have to be active as citizens and be, go to the town hall, go to the city meetings, because this stuff is always happening. And I think the other thing is, the people that are in office, that are in Congress, that are in, like, we look at we look at what's happening nationally often and don't look at what's happening locally. But of course, locally is where we're breeding this corruption. And then those people, when they are successful locally, they can get onto the larger stage and do even more damage. The larger question is, why is it that this dark money and these lobbyists and these people who are special interests, why are they getting catered to? And then we look at the election laws and we look at the Supreme Court, and that's where a lot of this stuff really took a dark turn. With Citizens United and other issues like that. So I think it's really important to people. What I always say, because when you can get into, and people will get into arguments about rhetoric, and they will talk about what they think their party stands for. And I always tell people, don't listen to what they're telling you. Go and look at their votes.
Yep.
That's the story. And so the votes will show you. So why did they vote that they don't want the Disclose Act to be passed? Why did they vote against the Stock Act, right? So, these are the stories. That is the truth. And sometimes those stories can be spun because they'll make something that is a disguise kind of. They'll talk about some bill and let them vote on something that they know isn't going to pass, so they can claim that they voted on this thing. But there's always the story of the vote where they voted no on disclosing the truth about who's lobbying them and who's paying them. and how they're making their money.
It's interesting. Right? It's interesting, Sarah, that you said that, because so I look at the way in which you talk about the voting, and I'll overlay this with the Marjorie Taylor Greene situation. Okay, I've said I've not bought into any of it. No matter what she's saying now, however she's saying what she's saying about anything, period, is how did she vote when it really mattered? And even with Mitt Romney, and even though, like I said, I knew I was highlighting, he said something that we've all known for a long time. In this case, this is, sort of merging local with national. But Mitt, how did you vote? I mean, in some cases, he did vote against certain things, but at the end of the day, the majority of his votes were to further keeping taxes in a way that benefited the wealthier parts of our society. And I don't just say millionaires and billionaires, but because there's a lot of people that are not in that pool of voting politicians, but they're benefiting from what those politicians are doing. And Mitt Romney was the same guy that said, corporations are people. And when we were talking about Citizens United a few years back. And so it is how they vote. That is the action. And I appreciate you reminding us of that, Sarah. Good point. Absolutely good point.
Because, it's easy, and we see the Epstein files and the way they're being discussed right now by the Trump administration versus what they're doing. That's another great example that you have to look at what people are doing. And this applies to personal lives as well. But, of course, all politics is personal in reality. And so you have to look at what people are doing, not what they're saying to you. Do they show up? How are they voting? Donald Trump ran on releasing the Epstein files and then got into office, and all he has done is obstruct their full release, even in the face of a new law that was passed and even in the face of a subpoena. So that what he stands for is hiding this information from the American people, from the entire world, actually. He's hiding and obstructing the full release of this information. That is not what he's saying. What they say is, we are trying to protect victims. That is a lie. And so that's rhetoric. And then we look at their actions. Their actions are the exact opposite. And that is, I do want to say that this is a theme with this administration that I think is very difficult for people to tolerate. People know they're being lied to, and they know they're being gaslit every day. And this is really that whole, the big lie approach to seizing power. And one thing that does, when you tell a big lie that's so big that people say, there's no way that would be a lie, a lot of people know, they feel that something is off. They might not have all the information, but they do feel something is off. And I think that in itself is so toxic. We can't really understand how detrimental that is to democracy and to people's mental health and their well-being. And I'm talking about everyone that hears this stuff, even in the background, and they know that something is wrong, something is not real, and something is a lie.
Yeah.
And we're all living under that.
That deception, but also that reality. I refer to it sort of as a political PTSD. That we're all we're living under, and it's kind of one of the reasons why I talked about earlier in the show what people are going to be doing during the holiday this next week, 2 weeks time to navigate those treacherous waters. Sarah, let's take a quick break. We're going to come back, chat with you a little bit more, and then we will get you out of here because we know you got a busy morning. 773-763-9278. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
This is a WCPT Veteran Minute. Captain Hugh Molzak's love for the sea started after he finished high school as he served the British Sooners and in 1918 immigrated to the United States. Within 2 years of joining the Marines, Molzak earned his Shipping Master Certificate, the first African American to do so. In 1921, Molzak was promoted to the rank of captain. In 1942, the SS Booker T. Washington, the first ship to be named after an African American, was created, and Molzak was offered the position of captain, but he turned it down at first as the Marines did not want to have an integrated crew. Molzak stood firm on his beliefs, stating, "Under no circumstances will I command a Jim Crow," and Molzak became the first African American captain of the first ever integrated crew. Under Captain Molzak, over 18,000 troops were sent to the European war front, and ships carrying tanks, aircrafts, and ammunition to United States troops in World War II. This has been a WCPT Veteran Minute.
You're listening to WCPT 820. Here's the latest Chicago weather update.
From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. We'll see a few spotty areas of drizzle at times possible late today. Otherwise, cloudy skies, a high in the low 40s. South winds at 5 to 15 miles per hour, gusting as high as 25. For tonight, a slight chance for drizzle, cloudy, a low near 37. By Tuesday, partial sunshine, high 46 degrees. Wednesday, a chance for rain, late cloudy, and a high around 42. That's your latest Chicago weather update.
Currently, it's 35.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Richard Chu's got his eyes on the truth. And you're right where you need to be. This is Chu's Views.
Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Great having you with us. It was great having President of the Illinois Federation of Teachers Union with us, Stacy Davis Gates, and now our good friend Sarah Jones from the daily PoliticusUSA. Sarah, so let me ask you about. You talked about corruption. You talked about how that is, you know, it's such a huge problem right now, and it's happening in so many different spaces. And right now, in front of our very eyes, the horrible tragedy of women, girls being victimized and becoming now survivors of these horrible folks is being propped up once again by the Justice Department. And Pam Bondi is standing in the way of justice being done. You wrote a great article. Inherent contempt charges are being prepared against Attorney General Pam Bondi. Let's talk about that. Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie said yesterday that they've got something to say about that.
Yeah, you know, this hasn't been used, just to put this in context, since the 1930s. The Trump administration is so corrupt, and they are flouting the law to such a degree that this is now what is going to be required to get in hopes of getting them to comply. I think it's fair to say that they won't be complying with the law, and we are sort of looking at Pam Bondi is probably going to go down for this cover-up. And I also think it's interesting that she was the Attorney General in Florida as well during some of this when it was being covered up in Florida. So there's a lot of interesting connections that probably could be investigated and that might exist there as well. But we have a government right now that is actively violating the law. And one of the things I think people need to understand that really was like a gut punch to me when I heard it was that the New York Times did some extensive reporting on the Epstein-Trump relationship. And one of the reporters said that in making phone calls and reaching out to people, including victims, they have never encountered this level of fear where people won't even pick up the phone. They are afraid of the president's supporters, and the victims, many of them say they have been targeted with death threats. And so we have a system right now that is in place where there's like this stochastic terrorism effect, where people are so afraid to say anything they know is going to upset this president. Now, why is it that people know that talking about their experience of being sex trafficked or being raped or being abused is going to upset this president? Why is that? Why are his supporters, why do they know that they should threaten people into not talking?
Yep.
I think that right there is one of the I would say the theme of how we got here, and this kind of like mob violence that's being aimed at, and it's being aimed at these victims, but we saw this against voters. We've seen this against cities with predominantly a black majority of voters every election. This has been going on, this threatening of people and silencing of people by his supporters. And so while we see lawmakers trying to hold Donald Trump and his administration accountable, what is happening here on the ground? Yeah. Why are these people that are out here in the streets terrorizing innocent victims, why are they not being held accountable? You know, why are the people that issued those bomb threats to the voting areas, why weren't they held accountable? It's stunning to me the level that these people are, the sort of privilege they've been given to act however they want to.
Well, this is one of those things, Sarah, and I've said this versions of it before. This is where the crap is rolling downhill at an incredibly fast pace, so much so that people can't even stand up to fight in some ways against it. But I mean, obviously, that doesn't mean that we don't fight. It just means that it's coming at folks at such a pace and such a rate right now. And to your question about how these people are getting away with it, or they're not being held accountable, I mean, that's the plan. It's to shove as much down so that people, lose their faith in not just the government, but in systems in general, to a point where they don't want to stand up to do anything. And I say don't want that. I don't mean that in a negative way, but they're just tired. I get that. I understand that. And trust me, when I hear people say that, Richard, I'm doing everything I can. I know what they're saying. I know what they're feeling, because they're seeing it in terms of how people are getting away with things, to your point. And they're feeling it when it comes to how this federal government is applying financial pressure in a way that's removing the incentive for people to be excited, to be happy. It's a two-pronged approach that in some factions or places in the country it's working, but I won't say sadly. I guess in terms of just in broader information, I think that the more we push our side of the table, our leaders, to recognize that there is a wind out there that says that we can fix this. And I'm not trying to be pie in the sky here. I'm just saying the more that we push our elected officials that are on the left, that hopefully are doing the right thing and have the right mindset and the right plan, we will be able to offset some of this. But unfortunately, and this is the sad part, it is going to take some time.
I do want to remind people, because I think your point, I worry about this constantly, the way that all of this is working, and it is intended to work to depress people and to kill their morale so they don't stay engaged. That's exactly the point. Who have we not seen in these Epstein dumps? President Obama and President Biden, and when the photographer that took the photos of the Trump administration that revealed their true characters, his photos of Obama and Biden are very revelatory. And the photo of Biden was such a hopeful photo of a president who really stood for American values. And I think we need to remember all of the work that those two presidents did to help the American people. It is possible. And I would say that President Biden did so much for people that people aren't even aware of, like that whole thing about how he was making it a law so that you could kill a subscription. You know how like the gym subscription, all these, and you have to be on the phone for hours. He was passing this law, so like is the way you sign up for it is the way you kill the subscription.
Right.
So if it took you one click, then you get one click to kill. That might have sounded small. Nobody really cared at the time, but to me, that is a huge impact on our lives, and it hits our wallets. So it is possible to have a good president, and it is possible. There are good people. They're not everywhere, But just like in our personal lives, how you have to look to find good people, the same thing is true with lawmakers, and the same thing is true with presidents. But they do exist, and they are out there, and it is our job to have higher standards and to say we are not going to tolerate this absolute corruption that Donald Trump represents. And he is the opportunity for all of us to say, finally, we've had enough.
That right there is probably that's such a strong point. If there's anything that he has done and his cronies and all the rest have done, is hopefully brought enough people to the moment to say this is enough, and now is the time that I have to step up and I have to fight. Sarah, always great to have you with us. This is the last time we're going to have you on before we get into the new year. So I want to wrap up and thank you again for being patient this morning so that we could get President Gates on. But what are your quick thoughts for our listeners as we head through the end of this year and into 2026?
Well, I think 2026 is really going to be a very interesting ride. And I know that this is like a white knuckle roller coaster ride, but I think a lot of things are going to come out in 2026, and we have elections coming up that are really going to, I think, tell a story that a lot of people don't want to hear, but it will be impossible to ignore, and be that force in these people's lives, be the force that they can't ignore. That's what I would say for everyone to carry that into 2026. I know you're exhausted, and I know this is upsetting, but all of that stuff, all of the emotions and the exhaustion is, we have control over that. We can take this holiday time and recharge ourselves and come back and say, you will not hide from us. We will be here at every turn. You cannot get away with this while we are paying attention.
Yeah, that's a great message, Sarah, and it means a lot. And I thank you so much for hanging with us this year and being on the calls and sharing your information. And I know our listeners have really appreciated what you've had to say and you being committed to the fight. So thank you so much for all your contributions to Choose Views here in 2025. It's really meant a lot to me and meant a lot to the show.
It means a lot to me to be on the show, and I'm honored to be here. And thank you so much for having me. And I hope everybody has a wonderful, holiday time, recharge, and come back ready.
That's right.
It's a big one next year.
Right on, Sarah Jones. Thanks for hanging with us this morning. Stay safe. I will talk to you soon, sooner than our next time on the air. But be safe, and we look forward to hanging out again soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break. 773-763-9278 is the number. You're listening to Choose Views on WCPT AM 820 in Chicago and WARR 1520 AM and 103.5 FM from Warren County, North Carolina. I'm Richard Chu. We'll be right back.
If you're drowning in debt, you need to call Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender, about a fresh start debt consolidation refinance. Today, meet Jordan, 47, project manager, married to Jackie, 43, executive assistant, combined income 260 G's a year, living in a $600,000 home with their 3 kids, called to pay off $120,000 worth of credit card debt, high interest rate consumer loans, and 2 401k loans. Team Hochberg loan officer Cindy Piazza helped Jordan and Jackie pay off their debt, eliminated their stress with the Team Hochberg Fresh Start Debt Consolidation Refinance, which saved them over $12,000 a year. Team Hochberg's helped thousands of radio listeners, but we can't help if you don't call 855-563-2843 or visit 56david.com. That number again is 855-563-2843 or visit that website you know and love, 56david.com. Lower.com, equal housing lender, MLS 1124061.
Because facts matter. You're listening to WCPT 820.
He's not here to yell. He's here to inform and maybe stir the pot. This is Choose Views with Richard Chu.
All right, guys, welcome back to the show. You can subscribe. Well, let me start. People can always ask me what can they do to support what we do in WCPT and Heartland Signal. As always, the best way to support our sponsors and to tell them that you appreciate them and them advertising with us. But if you're on Facebook, there's another way. You can now subscribe to the WCPT 820 and Heartland Signal Facebook pages. A subscription is just 99 cents a month, where we will have some special offers for our subscribers coming soon. So visit us, WCPT 820, Chicago's Progressive Talk, and Heartland Signal on Facebook, and hit the subscribe button. Today on Live, Local, and Progressive, Professor William Muck will be in for Joan Esposito. His guests include Atlantic staff writer Michael Scherer, Abdullah Al-Brahini, Associate Professor of Accounting and Economics at Northern Kentucky University, Phil Barker, Professor of Political Science at Keene State College, and William Muck's co-host for the Politics Lab podcast. Wednesday, Turi Ryder will be in for Joan. Live, Local, and Progressive, weekdays 2 to 5 here on WCPT AM 820, Heartland Signal, and tune in. Then tonight on Driving It Home, Patty Vasquez will be joined by guest host Dr. Kathy Tynas of Alivio Medical Center, and their guests will include Dallas Jones, a Houston-based deacon and political analyst, Stephen Kravitz, a Milwaukee-based attorney, who offer his expertise on the case of Judge Hannah Dugan, who was found guilty last week of felony obstruction. Driving It Home with Patty Vasquez, weekdays 5 to 7, WCPT AM 820, the Heartland Signal website. Tune in, YouTube, and Facebook. And Patty and I are going to hang out tomorrow morning on Choose Views, the 7 o'clock hour. So be sure to plug in with us. Seth David Radwell. You guys remember, he's been on with us a couple times back in the late summer and then a few weeks ago. He's the author of the book Schism. And really, when I talk about American Schism, it is really you got to read it, guys, and because what it does is it has sort of that feel of a regular book, if you will, but also kind of a mystery feel to it, at least in the way that I look at it. Seth, good morning and welcome back to Choose Views.
Good morning, Richard. It's a pleasure to be back with you. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. I'm kind of making it work this morning. We had to shift some puzzle pieces around. So thanks for hanging tight with us this morning. I know we were a little bit behind our normal scheduling, but thanks for being with us this morning.
It's always good to be with you, so I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, listen, so big question that I'll ask you, and Sarah and I talked about this in the previous segment, and then President Gates talked about this as well, as it relates to what you see that Democrats have got to be doing right now. We're wrapping up 2025. We're going into 2026. We've had some great successes. The November 4th elections were very powerful, and I think that they scared the heck out of the Republicans in many ways. But as we go into 2026, Seth, if you were sitting with 10 leading voices of Democrats, whether they be local politicians like our mayor here in Chicago, our governor, or some of the other federally elected officials, what would you say, guys and gals, here are the 2 or 3 things that you got to get done if we're going to change this, we're going to move this needle?
I think it's fundamental that Democrats of all kinds keep their eyes on the prize, meaning focus on the most pressing issues that face the majority of Americans today, which is, in a word, it's called affordability. And the reason why I say that, Richard, is because for so much of the last sequences, the last, let's say, 10 years, it's very true that Democrats have been very divided as Republicans have aligned behind this new movement called Trumpism or MAGA and have been very unified and become, as we see from 2024 election, have become a big tent. And we need to do that. Progressives need to do that. And I use the term progressive carefully because what I mean by that is folks in general in the broad tent of what are problem solvers, pragmatic leaders, and I'm not necessarily including what some call the far left, which are more ideological. And I say that because I think for most Americans, affordability has become a major, major concern over the past 10 years. It's certainly a result of many things like COVID and other crises that we faced, but we have to figure out how to bring back the middle class and create an affordability situation in America, in towns and cities and in rural areas as well.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that popped into my mind, and it has popped in my mind before when I think about affordability and bringing back and making sure that sort of this core of American consumers and voters and participants are addressed is sort of and you get this as a former corporate business person and business owner. You understand the importance of strategy, short-term, medium-range, and long-term strategy. And how the long-term strategy, you set that goal and then you work backwards and say, here are the things that the signposts that we've got to hit along the way. So one of the things that comes to mind, and I want to get your take on this. I think that when we talk about affordability, the Republicans ran on it, but they haven't done a darn thing about it. They've made it worse.
Right.
So I think that one of the basic, you kind of said, Richard, kind of back to basics. I think one of the most basic things from a messaging standpoint that the Democrats have to do across the board is show how what Republicans, quote, ran on or promised would happen. And I don't just say Donald Trump. I say all Republicans, so we catch them all, is to say this is what they ran on right here. These 4 things. Let's just use that 5 things. And here's how they failed on each of those 5 things and how it has negatively impacted your life. We, on the other side of this, are going to do this to fix that. I think people need to see, it's one thing to say we're going to fix the economy, we're going to lower the price of this, or we're going to do this sort of broad language. I think it needs to be very personal to say, listen, Donald Trump and the Republicans ran on X, and they failed you here by raising tariffs. Here's how tariffs could have worked to your advantage. So they've got to take each of those items and then turn it around and say, here's what they said, here's how they failed, here's what we're going to do to fix that specific thing. Broad language isn't going to work this time, in my opinion. What are your thoughts, Seth?
Well, I think that's true in a couple of cases related to economic and affordability issues. But let's take the example of health care. I think Americans, given the debacle that's gone on in Congress this year in terms of not being able to address the elephant in the room, which is that most people's health care premiums are going to go through the roof. They're going to double, if not triple, over the course of the next month as they move into the new year. And this is really, in terms of affordability, it's one of the most fundamental issues. There are millions of Americans now who are foregoing health insurance, which is, I mean, think about the impact that has on lives. Things like detecting early stage cancers, which is so vital, things like preventing epidemics, all of the issues that people use the healthcare system for are going to be drastically affected by millions not getting health insurance. So in that case, I think your diagnosis and your prognosis of being very specific about pain points in terms of the Republican failures will work. Yes, I think also that may be true for tariffs. I think the trickier one is an issue like immigration, quote unquote, because there was such a perception, and there was some truth to this, that in the Biden administration, we had lost control of our immigration process, which, of course, goes way back before Biden. This has been going on for decades as we've punted on immigration reform repeatedly. But the image that had been solidified in voters' minds was that the border was out of control. Mm-hmm. And what we see now is, this is where Trump can say, I've solved that. But, of course, is the solution worth the pain? We have, in many cities in America, we have a massed police force raiding buses and apartment buildings. Is that the kind of America we want to live in? So I think yes, we can be very specific about where the Republicans failed in some areas like health care and affordability and tariffs. I think in other areas we have to be potentially more nuanced. And of course, as you mentioned, that's always tricky.
Well, and when you were describing that, I had to force my brain to shut off and listen so that I could catch what you were saying. And you're spot on. I think even with immigration, and this is we'll just throw this one out. I think with even immigration, there is a thing that was about to happen, potentially that could have happened, that was part of the Biden administration and certainly our previous run at immigration that the Republicans messed up. Donald Trump the conversation or whatever with Mike Johnson about the bipartisan bill that was Langford in Oklahoma said
Absolutely.
was. So I think that's one of those opportunities that we can go back and say, here's the moment that.
Yes, but here's where the art of politics, Richard, is so tricky. Because, of course, you and I, who follow this probably closely, remember very well that there was a bipartisan bill that, in fact, gave Republicans a lot of what they had been wanting for a long time, that Langford was pushing. And, of course, Trump convinced the party not to sign that so he could run on the immigration problem. So, you and I know that. But in the game of politics, that becomes very difficult for the people who don't follow the political environment as much as we do to understand. Now, so what you're talking about actually has a long history, because there have been 5 broad immigration reform bills, comprehensive, over the last 25 years, and none of them have passed. And this is the larger problem of Congress being more concerned about getting reelected than doing their job and getting work done. So yes, I think I understand exactly what your point is. It may be a tough message to sell in terms of the political environment in 2026.
I don't disagree with you with that. It's almost too too nerdy. It's too in the weeds. And people forget how long, it was a year and a half ago that this was a thing that was could have gotten done. So people have forgotten about that, because the reality is they're looking at somebody's grandmother getting snatched out of a car, taking their grandkids to school. So that's maybe the better message or touch point would be, but again, we have to be specific and we have to be basic. And I think it has to be somewhat simple. Here's what they did. Yeah. Here's what they ran on. Their plan didn't work. Look at what it's costing you and causing you. Here's our fix. And I know that's oversimplifying it, Seth, but I definitely wanted to get your thoughts on that. That's why I asked you kind of the big question. Listen, man, it's always great to talk to you, because I love the fact that you've got these political chops, but you also have this wonderful business background and experience to kind of layer into how we solve some of these things, even social issues, from a business perspective. What's the business case rather than necessarily the beneficiary, case of looking at it from that standpoint, and which is not wrong. It's just different. And I think that's what Democrats have an opportunity to do. Seth.
Great. I agree.
We're wrapping up, and I appreciate you letting us kind of bend our time frame today. Because of, we had our 2 previous guests. It's always great to hang with you. But what would be your sort of send-off for folks? Because I know we're going to have you back on in January. But what would be your send-off to our listeners all across the country as we end 2026 and 2025 and we head into 2026?
I think the divisiveness that's been the kind of the identity divisiveness that's been a hallmark of the Democratic Party for a while, and has cost us a lot of mid swing voters. I think we have to recognize that's happening in the MAGA base now. There's a tremendous division about what makes an American, and I think we can rally around the ideals of America as we move towards a new year and hopefully a lot of success in the future. So I think America is the greatest experiment in self-government in the history of the world, and we have to keep it going in that manner and in that light.
So great to have you with us, man. Seth David Radwell, the author of American Schism and so many other good, well-written pieces. Seth, have a safe holiday, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa season. We'll talk to you in January. Sound good?
All right. The best for the holidays. We'll talk soon.
All right. Bye-bye now. All right, guys. Remember to stay tuned for the Stephanie Miller Show. Take a deep breath and make your life count. We'll see you tomorrow.
Would it be crazy if you packed your bags and left for a week, a month, a year? What if you left for 2 years? What if you were going far away to help in a village on the edge of the Gobi Desert, to teach children and learn a thing or two about yourself? Would that be crazy? Peace Corps. Life is calling. How far will you go?
WCPT replay.
John Fugelsang. Listen, y'all, the dude wrote a book called Separation of Church and Hate. What a great title. Tell us a little bit what's happening in that space.
Well, and I'm so grateful to you and all the deeply attractive listeners of WCPT for supporting this book. So I wrote this book years ago about how to use the Bible for believers and atheists, because even if you don't believe in Jesus, if you're debating a right-wing Christian on any of the issues that divide us, Jesus is probably on your side, whether he's a literal figure or not. They don't care about the teachings of Jesus. They don't care about religious freedom. They don't give a damn what God tells you to do in the Bible. They care about conservative Christian power. That's it. Jesus' movement was all about humanity.